Hey ladies, it's Motherhood Monday, and today I want to talk about a question that I got from a reader about Christmas gifts. And her question was, how do you encourage your family members to give less gifts to your kids? She said, we've tried to have this conversation to no avail. And so she was just looking for some encouragement in that way. And maybe you have struggled with this from time to time. I know I have. My parents love to give gifts. It's actually my mom who likes to give the gifts. She likes to go shopping, and that is a wonderful way to bless our kids. But then as a result, our kids have a ton of toys and things that they just don't play with. And I think the effect kind of dims. And so we've had to have this conversation before. And at first, I don't know that it was received poorly, but it was kind of an awkward conversation to have. That, you know, as we went over a number of years of having that chat about gift giving, it really has turned into a really wonderful situation for us. And so I just wanted to share with you a few things that you can try if you have this conundrum at Christmas time of trying to communicate with family members that you don't want your kids to receive a ton of presents for Christmas, but they like giving gifts, and so that might be a hard concept for them to accept. And so one thing that I would encourage you to do, of course, is first to pray about it. A lot of times I just jump into action and I don't necessarily pray about something before I tackle it. And I think that when we do that, we tend to have a better attitude going into things, and many times it will just put the situation in a better light. So I'd encourage you just to pray about that a little bit. And then also one thing you could try is what I like to call the sandwich method, to have a discussion with them about it using the sandwich method. And the sandwich method is essentially to sandwich two compliments sandwich a piece of constructive criticism between two compliments. And so what you could do is say something like, hey, Mom and Dad, you know, thanks so much for thinking about our kids this Christmas. We're really glad that you love to bless them with gifts and give to them. And you know, it's really fun to see that you enjoy doing that. What we're trying to do with our kids is we're trying to show them that they don't need so much stuff, and our house is really filling up. You know, whatever your reasoning are behind that, you know, that's kind of where your constructive criticism comes into play. And then you would close the conversation at the end with saying, you know, really appreciate you taking time to think about this and just kind of listen to my thoughts and you know, hope that you'll consider kind of working with us on this matter. And you can word this however you want, however your individual situation is. And I understand that if you don't have a great relationship with your parents, maybe it can be super hard to have this discussion, and that's really where the prayer comes in handy. But I think most times our parents or in-laws or other relatives are more open to the conversation than we think. But if you are having a particularly stubborn or difficult time, sometimes the sandwich method really can speak to certain personality types. And so I'd encourage you to try that. Another thing you could do is talk about, if the conversation opens up, or if you just want to launch right into this, just depending on what your situation is, you could talk about having what types of gifts they could give. So for instance, what we did with my parents is we talked to them about how the kids like to have something to open. So obviously my mom is still going to get them 2 or 3 things that they're going to open. But then we also talked about getting experience gifts. So for instance, a pass to the water park, a yearly membership to the zoo. My parents have actually paid for like t-ball and swim lessons and things like that, just at our suggestion. And if grandparents say, well, but we want them to have something to open, there are creative ways to make little gift certificates, or there's creative ways to add something small to those experience gifts. One year my mom put swim goggles in a little box, and then she wrapped it with like a little paper. My mom likes to write poems, so she wrote this little poem about you know, going to the water park and having to pass the water park. So you could do something like that, you know, if your parents are like, oh, but they really need things to open. Kind of trying to go halfway as you move towards this understanding of wanting to give less gifts over time. Sometimes too, that can take care of itself as your kids get older, because kids are harder to buy for as they get older, and their presents cost more. So perhaps that can maybe sometimes just take care of itself too. But I'd encourage you just to add something into the discussion rather than always trying to just take away by saying give less gifts. Maybe talk about what we could do instead that would have as much of a positive impact, but would result in less amount or a smaller amount of items, which obviously equals less clutter in your home. And who doesn't want that? And then the last thing I would suggest is just to be patient. And I know that's a really irritating thing to hear because I don't like to hear it either. But I think of how many times, if there's something that I need to learn or understand differently, it takes time. It's like if someone says something to me about it initially, I may not think about it that much, or I may not consider why they're sharing it with me or why they think I should have a different opinion on something. But I think if we can flip that around and recognize that sometimes we just do have to be patient with our parents or our in-laws. Maybe they feel like they want to give all these gifts because they couldn't give as much to you when you were a kid, or maybe they're like my mom and that's their love language is to give gifts. And so just being patient and finding ways that you can honor and respect that. But also to not compromising what you want to do as a family, and to not be surprised if it takes time, and to be okay with the fact if it takes time too. I think one really thing that's important to remember is that your family members are not your enemy, and the situation might be kind of an enemy, but your family members aren't. And so, we need to pray and really consider and find ways that we can turn these difficult discussions into a positive thing. And I will say, after 6 or 7 years of having this discussion with my parents, kind of in sometimes, it'd be in little ways, and sometimes I'd have a long chat with my mom about it. But we've come to a place now where we really agree kind of on our approach, and it's really worked out well. So I would just encourage you with that, and tell you that I'm praying for you, and I hope it goes well for you if you need to tackle this situation with your family. And just overall, that you would enjoy Christmas and just not let those conflicts get in the way, because that's what Satan would like, is for us not to enjoy this season with our family and have it be a time of stress. And none of us really want that to happen. So just praying that you have a blessed Christmas and Advent season. Have a great day.